Awesome. Okay. So listen, if you're looking to get better results with less effort, you're in the right place. If you've been creating some unnecessary costs and frustrations for yourself, you're in the right place. So today's theme really is nobody to blame but me. And the whole point of that is not to beat each other up. But the point of it is that if we can look in the mirror before we look out the window and really take a look at how am I creating some of this, it's empowering as you know what, because when we can do that, we can change it. I just really emphasizing that your current rules are creating your current results. And the great news in that is that if we want some different results, all we got to do is change the rules. And I think the best news of all is that we don't have to do a complete overhaul, but just refining or resetting even one rule can open up all new possibilities. And I may get a little preachy this morning, but this topic is just so important. It's showing up in my own life, it's showing up in the lives of a lot of our clients right now. So, for that reason, I think that it's so important. Whenever I'm designing anything, whether it's a year-long program or it's a 30-minute webinar, I really do spend some time just getting a divine download. Like, what is it that people really, really need to hear? And how can I bring it in a way that it will resonate? And so this one was really near and dear to my heart. So I wanted to start out with a few questions. What's it like being you right now? I mean, that's a great question to just even start with. Would other people be excited about that? Are you excited about that? I think of the next question that I wanted to ask is where is an area of your life where you're willing to accept the blame? Because if we're willing to accept the blame for the results, that also means that we're empowered to change it. So where is it? And whether you're in a rehab recovery or you're just trying to level up your life, it always begins with getting honest. We got to get honest about where am I getting in my own way? Where am I maybe sabotaging my success? And then the third question I just wanted to start this Tuesday early morning with is what becomes possible when we are operating at our optimal best? Because I don't even know that we even recognize or realize what becomes possible. Because I think sometimes our brains can't even imagine it because we haven't experienced it yet. You know that we look a lot at the model that our experiences drive our beliefs. So when we haven't even experienced something yet, it's hard to believe it. And that's why I think it's so important that we're surrounding ourselves with other people who can believe in us before we can even believe in ourselves. That's so important. I just sent an email out right before this to the people that are publishing my book and just thanking them for believing in this project because there's a lot of ups and downs when you're doing it. And it's so important that you've got a team that can set aside any frustrations or obstacles and hold a belief in what we're working on together. So hopefully you've got a team like that. But if you don't, build it. That's so important. And it starts with surrounding yourself with some of the names I'm seeing right here. I know you guys think big and it's so important. So I'll quit saying important. But what we try to do every month is just come together. This recording goes out to a lot of people, but just land on a topic that can help all of us level up. And that was the heart and the intent behind this leading lab. And this year, because I'm writing a book that is around high performance leadership, the science of high performance leadership, and how we can use that science, these 7 principles, to really direct us to become leaders worth following. And because I'm working on that, I wanted the Leading Lab series to support it. And each month we're taking a different principle and just landing on it for a few minutes. So, we started in February, we looked at challenge. Parts, a day important principle of action. So that's where we're going. Okay, so first thing I wanted to talk about was the owner's manual. All right, like I don't know about you, but I usually keep the owner's manual if I buy something, like let's say a new cordless vacuum cleaner, because that's really relevant for me right now. I usually keep the owner's manual just in case, right? And we usually don't access the owner's manual until something is. Okay, that's even funnier. All right. Like we just got popped off right as I'm talking about accessing the owner's manual when something goes wrong. But that's usually when we get curious. Like, how does that Zoom thing work? We usually don't even start asking those questions until something goes wrong. But I wanted this idea around the principle of action. Your brain does so many incredible things for you. The very fact that you were able to get up out of bed this morning is a miracle in and of itself. But the principle of action is helping us see that your brain also has severe limitations. And I wish that we had an owner's manual that we could go to and look up the table of content and say foggy memory and go right to it. So it has severe limitations. And there's so much about our brain that we don't know. You might have heard the myth that we only use 10% of our brain. Well, that is a myth. I think a truer statement is probably we only understand about 10% of how our brain works. So we still have a lot to learn. However, there is a lot of the owner's manual we already have. There is a lot that we know. Well, let's start with applying that information first. Let's start with applying what we do know. That is a game changer in our teams, in our workplaces, in our world, in our own personal life. And so I wanted to, in today's agenda, kind of debunk a few myths with the truths about what we do know to be true. Maybe encourage you and challenge you to set a new intention for optimal brain health right now, because the brain is the equipment that is running our results. And then share a framework that I've picked up from Amen Clinics that I believe is just a really great guideline for brain health for a lifetime. Because as long as we are on this earth, if we want to be at our optimal level, we have got to keep this equipment working at its optimal level. That's what's driving our results. And so let's take a look at, even though the owner's manual may not be 100% complete, there's a lot that we know that we could be putting into place. So does that sound good to everybody? Okay, yes. Hopefully I don't get kicked off again. I don't know. I don't know about you, but do you feel sometimes like life is like an Amazon delivery person? It just delivered something to your door that you didn't order. Like, this is not the right house, okay? Like, I didn't order whatever is in this box. But nevertheless, it's in front of your door. Is anybody feeling like that right now? Oh my, I don't know. There's weird stuff going along in so many people's lives that we're working with, but in my own life, like when I think about these past few months this year, there's been a lot that's been delivered to my door that I did not order. And in fact, I don't even want what's in the box, but it's nevertheless in my yard. And so when I saw this picture, I thought, I gotta share. Like some of us may be feeling like this. Apparently, this is a real person's house in Florida. Like, man, I didn't want all those boxes that have just been delivered, but they're mine. And what am I gonna do with it? Because life is unpredictable. You know, 90% of what you're gonna experience today, you have zero control over. So and the more responsibility we take on, and the more you venture into the unknown, the more get ready for the unpredictable. Like you just can't, can't predict it. So if we want to navigate our days at optimal performance, we got to get really clear on what we can control and commit to doing that. So, like, I'm a word nerd. So, this word commit, the origin of it is pretty fascinating if you take a look at it. But what the word means, com means together, it means with, and then the other that I can't pronounce and I won't even try means to send or to put. So when you dig into this word, what it really means is to bring together what I say or believe with what I do. So I will, like you guys I'm looking at right now, you're high performers. That's what we're working with every day, are people that are high performers. They're people that want to honor the commitments that they make. But they're also people who are breaking the commitments that they make to themselves every single day. And when you think about high performance, it's about this almost inner calling to be the best version of yourself, no matter what. And part of that means that I'm going to get clear on what my commitments are. And then I'm going to follow through. And I'm going to do that first and foremost to myself. So if we're not doing that, we got nobody to blame but me. Okay. The theme of this morning. So, I just think that's so important. And I just want you to take a moment to reflect on, are you clear on what you're committed to for yourself? And how are you doing in honoring those commitments that you've made to yourself? So, in chat, if you don't mind, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being I never make a commitment that I never break a commitment that I make to myself would be a 10. 1 being I've been breaking the commitments that I've made like a lot. Okay, so wherever you feel like you're falling right now, yes, 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 yes. I like this. It depends on what it is. Isn't that the truth? Like Justine and I talk about this a lot. I mean, the research says it takes 30 days to seal a habit, and it takes us about 30 seconds to seal a bad habit, it seems like. So I just want you to check in, and I want you to think about how that current way of being, how that current rule is driving your current results. If you're experiencing, and I'm looking in the mirror, if you're experiencing some unnecessary frustrations or anxiety, how is that related to your lack of clarity on what you're committed to and then your lack of willingness to follow through with that commitment. So, let's say you're committed to working out. And then it's early morning and you're not feeling so good, but you made a commitment to do that. All right, so I just want you to think about that for a minute, because what I want to do is go to some of these myths and maybe give you some ideas. Um, when we set our non-negotiables for the things we can control, we position ourselves for the best possible outcome with the things we can't control. So just think about that for a minute. 90% of what's going to happen, we can't control. I mean, I wish we could. I wish I had that kind of power. I was thinking about this, talking about this weekend. We were at my daughter's softball game, and I wish we could control on how that game goes. But man, if I had that kind of power, I'd use it for something greater than softball. Okay, even though softball's pretty great. But when you think about it, when you set your non-negotiables for the things you can control, what you're doing is positioning yourself for the best possible results in those situations that we can't control. And so, a couple of questions. What happens when you're clear on the commitments you're making to yourself, and then you actually honor those commitments? What becomes possible? So I thought I want to spend a minute with just some of I mean, we could spend, the next year on any of these things, but I wanted to hit maybe my top 5 or 6 myths that we hear a lot and that I experience personally. One is that establishing brain healthy habits is a one and done. I'll just go to a class and I'll just, I'll just go to a retreat for the weekend. And we all know that this is not true at all. So we've been designing environments, work environments, the way the body works best for a long time. It's called ergonomics. And it's time that we start designing our work environments the way the brain works best. So when you think about a healthy work environment, a healthy culture, to maintain that result, it's not something that holds steady. It has to be reinforced continuously or it starts to fade. I'm sure everybody on here has been exposed to Simon Sinek's Start With Why, the power of why, and all of that. And that is clearly a very important thing, that we're clear on what our why is for our team, for our organizations, for us personally, and you constantly communicate that. But I think equally, maybe even a little bit more important, is the how. Have we clearly communicated the how we're going to operate, the commitments that we are going to honor, and how we're going to do that? And we're constantly reinforcing that message. It has to be reinforced. So where I'm going with that is, if we go into an organization, for example, and we do a leadership program, maybe it's even a year long. That doesn't mean at the end of the year, you're done reinforcing those leadership habits and mindset. It has to be something that is continuously reinforced by next thing, next thing, next thing. That's true for an organization. Here's my example, okay? The Philadelphia Eagles, if you didn't know, won the Super Bowl last year or this year. That doesn't mean that they didn't get up the next day. Maybe they took a week off. I'm not sure. I'm not in that world, but that doesn't mean that they stopped practicing, that they stopped going back to the fundamentals. My guess is they maybe took a little rest and they went right back at it. With our organizations, our leadership teams are doing something much greater than playing football and Super Bowls. But yet, how often do we do a class or a program and then you expect it to hold forever? You can't do that. You have to continuously reinforce the how, those high performance habits. That's true for an organization, it's true for a team, but it's true for us as individuals too. Each individual athlete on this team didn't say, well, I won the Super Bowl, now I'm done. I'll just keep winning. No, they're going right back to those fundamentals every single day. So, one of the fundamentals, a myth, is understanding brain healthy habits. So, one of the myths is to believe that your brain is just like any other organ in your body. Okay. So, to that, I would say, yes, in a way. It's just like any other organ in your body, in the sense that if something goes wrong with it, go get it fixed, right? I mean, in a way, it is like every other organ in your body. If something goes wrong with it, it's not a character issue. For example, if you have high blood pressure right now, nobody judges your character for having high blood pressure. Or if you were to have a heart attack, nobody's going to judge your character. It's just a body issue and you're going to go get it fixed. The same thing's true with your brain. If your brain's not functioning right, there's help. All right, go get help. It's not a character issue. In a way, there is some truth to that statement. Your brain is like any other organ in your body. But in another way, it isn't like every other organ in your body. So think about it. We're trying to understand how this equipment that runs the results in our life, we're trying to understand it with the very equipment we're trying to understand, which is a little odd. You're trying to redirect with the very equipment that you need to redirect. So in a way, it's not like every other organ. It's easily tricked. Think about it. Your brain has severe limitations. It's easily tricked. You don't have to believe every thought you have, but it's gonna feel 100% true. So it's kind of easily tricked. It's easily fatigued. So imagine the D over that S. All right, it easily fatigues. It's easily fatigued. You wake up with a certain amount of cognitive energy, and it's going to be drained throughout the day. So we got to look for ways to restore that cognitive energy, yes, but we also have to look at how are we waking up with the optimal amount of energy in the first place. I mean, you guys, your currency is your energy. It is your thoughts. It is your ability to create and solve problems and think strategically. All that is requiring a lot of fuel to do that. And your brain is so vulnerable. It's vulnerable to disease, it's vulnerable to injury, it's vulnerable to your thoughts. And so just recognizing that if we want it to work optimally, there are some non-negotiables that we've got to put in place for it to be most successful. So here's one of them. And here's a myth. I don't need a lot of sleep. Or I can just stay up later and get this done. Or I'll catch up on my sleep over the weekend. And I say that because I work with you every day, or people like you. And the truth is, sometimes this lack of sleep, we wear it as a badge of honor. Patty and I were talking yesterday, and she said something that I thought kind of just really stuck with me, Patty, which is that I'm a little suspect of emails that I get at 4 a.m. If I see that the email rolled in at 3, 4 a.m., I'm a little suspect about the quality of what they're delivering. So let's talk about this whole sleep thing. It's funny because usually about 9 o'clock, I'll look at Lance and I'll say, I'm going to get ready for bed. And so we sometimes joke about that because Lance will say, I just go to bed. Like I don't need this whole ritual sometimes of going to bed. But you think about the power of sleep. We are going to spend a third of our lifetime asleep if we are getting adequate sleep. So splurge for the mattress, okay? Like splurge for the great pillow. Um, if I'm going to go work out, I'm going to get ready to work out. I'm going to put certain things on. I'm probably going to grab water. I might do some stretching or whatever. Really, what I'm going to do is open up the app that Justine has, which is amazing. But there's a preparation that happens. I'm going to lay out my weights or whatever. If you're going to work, you're going to get ready for work. So a third of our life is sleeping. Let's get ready for sleep. Okay. So even thinking about what are the things that you need to do to get ready for optimal sleep, because your performance today started when you went to bed last night. That was the runway to set you up for optimal success for the things that are going to happen today that you didn't predict. So this idea of sleep to, all right, so there are things that your brain does for you when it sleeps that it won't do any other time. Your brain's incredibly active at night. It is busy resetting, sort, filing, and deleting information that it's taken in through the day, getting prepared, synthesizing new information with existing information, solidifying, learning. It's doing so many amazing things. So if you're not getting quality sleep, then what you should expect is less than optimal performance. It impairs our decision making and our judgment. A tired brain says, yes, just give me that donut for breakfast. Okay. A tired brain is it's going to say yes to things even when it knows better. We're going to have weakened emotional regulation because we're going to have less activity in the prefrontal cortex, which it's sort of like the regulator of the emotion. So this was interesting because in the limbic system, the emotional center of your brain, there's the amygdala, which is kind of like your brain's power surge, if you will. It's the thing that's triggered by extreme emotion. Well, there was a study that came out not too terribly long ago that there was a 60% increase in amygdala reactivity when there was sleep deprivation. And sleep deprivation doesn't have to be, like I haven't slept for a week. Another interesting study showed that people who got 6 hours of sleep over a 2 week period, like not like just in 2 weeks, they only got 6 hours of sleep. Let me rephrase that. They got 6 hours of sleep each night over a 2 week period, showed the same indicators of sleep deprivation as people who had stayed up for 2 nights straight. So you can imagine what you would feel like if you stayed up for 2 nights straight. Okay, like you'd be done. What they were saying is that performance was the same. So something to think about. All right, where do you need to get some additional help? Because when we're not getting adequate sleep, it also reduces our focus and attention. And most of us are having problems with that even on a good night's sleep. So we really don't need anything else that's going to impact our ability to focus and attend to the things that are most important. Drastically impacts your working memory. So one of the things that's most important is that at night, your brain is, again, solidifying information. It's sort, filing, and deleting that you've taken in through the day prior. And so if we want to optimize our memory, look at your sleep. Maybe this is the checkpoint that you need to reset sleep. And then therefore we have decreased self-control and willpower. So we send that email that we shouldn't have sent. Okay. Or we snap at somebody that we shouldn't have snapped at. And the truth is we just have decreased self-control and willpower. So anyway, you know what that looks like. Okay, so sleep. All right. So recognizing these habits are going to have to be reinforced every single day. It's not a one and done. It's going to be a forever commitment. And that is recognizing brain health is important. Yes, your brain is sort of like other organs in your body, but in one way, it's there. In many ways, it's very, very different, and it has severe limitations we need to recognize and we need to work with. First of all, we got to get sleep. That's like a pillar that should be a non-negotiable. Um, Working out, movement, and we're not talking about training for the Ironman, though if that's something that you want to do, you go. We'll cheer you on. Okay. We'll hold that belief for you. But your body has like up to 650 muscles. So I've read. And all that's there for a reason, for us to move. So I just want you to think about what happens when you're not moving your body through the day. And that's easy. It's easy for that to happen. So back in 2007, I think it was a while, I was asked to lead a half day session on brain health to a group of leaders in Hawaii. To which I said, I guess, if I must, y'all, a half day. So I felt like I needed to stay there 2 weeks so that I could be optimal for that half day. But the lady who did the early session that day, I did the afternoon. And by the way, in Hawaii, afternoon means like 1 to 3. So it wasn't true half day session. And the lady that did the session that morning was actually a nutritionist for the Denver Broncos. And she was just talking about the increase in the size of Americans over the last 10 years. And what could have prevented that? So Dr. Amen calls that diabesity, right? Because when we are overweight, it's impacting our brain function. So we got to move. But here's the great news. This is where I want to go with it. What she discovered in her research, that acceleration of increase in size of Americans over the last 10 years could have been prevented with 1,000 more steps a day and 100 less calories a day. And it was just such a powerful example of how small changes over time produce amazing results. So if we're not moving, obviously we're going to see a trend in the wrong direction in our physical size. But the thing is, movement adds so much to us. It improves our memory, it improves our ability to learn because it's increasing blood flow to the brain. Therefore, it's also elevating important chemicals like dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin. So we have enhanced focus and we have enhanced attention. And when we have enhanced focus and attention, we have improved emotion and emotional regulation, which then triggers more good chemicals and lowers the chemicals that are going to adversely impact us. Another thing that I just wanted to point out is let's get that cycle of goodness going. It increases our cognitive flexibility so that when we're hit with the box that Amazon delivered that we didn't order, right, we're in a better position to decide what meaning we want to give it. And we got more flexibility in how we approach it because we can see more options. We have less threat. And then something that becomes even more important to me as my age number continues to go up is it slows cognitive decline. Like I want, however long I live, I want to have ultimate brain capacity. And so part of that is going to require putting in the commitment to some of these non-negotiables. And again, it doesn't mean that you've got to be out for hours or be on the treadmill for an hour. And that's one thing that's great news. It can be 1,000 more steps a day. And even better if it's 20 minutes a day in something like strength training. Okay, my thoughts are not affecting my results is something that I think a lot of us, when you look at it like this, you're like, oh, I don't believe that. But our lives don't back it up. Okay, so the truth is your body responds to every thought you have. You know, man, there's a reason why scripture says take every thought captive. Your thoughts matter. So a couple of things, you know, and I say this a lot, Dr. Amen reinforces this, that your thoughts lie and you don't have to believe every one of them. Because when we believe that thought, when we are not monitoring the meaning we're giving those events, those boxes that end up in our yard, when we're not monitoring the meaning we're giving that, it's going to activate the amygdala, which will overtake your prefrontal cortex in milliseconds. All right. So today's tax day, y'all. Okay. For a lot of people, that's an amygdala moment. I was talking with my parents yesterday. They got hit with news they weren't expecting. And so that can trigger the amygdala, which will shut down the prefrontal cortex. This is one of the big vulnerabilities about your brain. And your stress hormones surge. But I think this is the most dangerous thing of all is that when we allow that to continue, recognize your brain is rewiring. Negative thinking is going to trigger more negative thinking. Why? Because it starts to feel familiar and your brain likes familiar, even if it's not healthy, even if it's sabotaging your success, it feels comfortable. And our brain's always going to default to comfort. That's why you got to keep developing yourself. You got to keep developing your leaders. You got to keep developing your team because the default is comfort. Default is familiar every single time. Um, when I was putting this together and finalizing it, I was just thinking about this idea of rewiring and the power of being able to reframe things. That's called in our world is kind of like a cognitive reappraisal. And we've got to be able to reframe it. And we've got to be able to monitor our self-talk and even our talk to others. Like be positive or be quiet. Okay. And that's not saying ignore reality. I mean, that's what's in the box and it's in your yard. Yes. But we've got to be able to frame that in a way that it is working for us and not against us. So when I was putting this together, for whatever reason, this came to my mind. You know, you might have read in the Old Testament, there's a story where the Israelites are going to enter into the promised land. So everybody's heard this in one way or another. I mean, at least you've watched, you know, the Ten Commandments with Charlton Heston. By the way, it's probably going to be on this weekend. If you haven't, you can pick it up. But anyway, so when they're entering into the promised land, one of the things that they've got to do is they've got to conquer the city of Jericho. So if you know this story, I just looked up, these were the rules that they were given. It was a very odd military strategy. They were supposed to march around the city, which was walled, for 6 days. And priests had trumpets of ram's horns. And on the 7th day, they were going to blow those trumpets, and then the walls were just going to fall down. Okay? Crazy, isn't it? But here's what's so important, and this is what popped in my head as I was putting this together. They were specifically told not to say a word while they're walking around the city. And honestly, I think, I mean, I don't know because I wasn't there, but when I think about that story and I think about the power of our talk, my guess is they were told to be quiet because otherwise they would have been driving their BMWs around the city. They're bitching, moaning, and whining. Everybody would have said, this is ridiculous. This is never going to work. Like, why were we given these instructions? We hear this all the time. The default is going there. So if they were told, do this, but don't say a word, because I really do believe it's like, if you can't be positive, you can be quiet. So not that there's not a place for venting, or, you got to have those moments. But if we want to set ourselves up for optimal performance and work with how the brain works best and overcome some of these limitations, there are just some checkpoints that we've got to put in place. Recognizing, this is a recap, recognizing that our default, man, we're going to have to reinforce this every single day. Recognizing that your brain is a very special piece of equipment. We need to understand it more, but we need to start applying what we already understand. That we got to get sleep. The quality of your day begins the night before. We got to move. All right, there's just so much power in movement. We weren't supposed to just not move. And it doesn't have to be big, massive changes. And then believing every thought you have and checking the meaning that you're giving it. So I wanted to share this with you guys. We're going through a certification program, which is a lot. It's like 8 months, okay, with Amen Clinic right now. But this is something that they teach. And these are the 11 risk factors that we can impact so that we have brain health for a lifetime. Every single day in my journal, I write something to the effect of, God, help me accomplish all that you have planned for me today. And that's, it's on the daily. But we want to be able to do that over a lifetime. That when we exit this planet, right, that we can say that we left it all on the field. We really did accomplish all that there was for us to accomplish. I can't think of a better thing to be able to leave, in the last few seconds of my life, knowing that I accomplished everything that I was put here to accomplish. To me, that's the indicator of a leader worth following. That's somebody who is committed to high performance, that they've got to be what they must be, no matter what. We've got to have good working equipment to do that, and this equipment is vulnerable and it has limitations. So what do we need to be paying attention to so it's at its optimal performance? And these are the 11 major risk factors. So we're putting that in chat, by the way. It's just a PDF that we can share. I just think it's so good. You can dig further into this because there's lots of ways to get support with it. And everything from supplements to exercise to food, to not having head trauma. Okay, wear a helmet. Okay. But the truth is, like, there's so many little things that we can do, like that 1,000 more steps a day, like that 100 less calories a day, like learning something new, like getting a little more quality sleep. Okay. Lastly, suffering is optional. Okay. So if you're nobody to blame but me, and not to, again, to beat anybody up, but to empower. The truth is, sometimes we can't see what we can't see, and we need help doing that. That's why we work with people. That's why we work with teams. That's why we work with leaders, because when you're in the thick of it, it's real hard to see. So suffering is optional if we can support you guys. The other thing, for those of you who are wanting to bring things to your team like this, we have a whole series of 30-minute, it can be 60-minute or 90-minute webinars that you could pace throughout the year, of just keeping this top of mind for the people that you're leading or the people that are on your team. So thank you guys for being here this morning. This is a topic, again, I've said, that's near and dear to my heart, but it really is the thing that makes all the difference. And I just want you to commit to your brain health no matter what. So I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you for those of you who watched and listened to it.